Hey moguls, it's Dr. T here, and I'm coming to you with a new process that I am doing and wanting to share with you, which is all about upgrading ourselves through using a process called internal family systems work on ourselves. And I'm also just going forward in my life creating content on the process of transformation that I'm doing with my own self. And this is something that is entirely new to me to be doing, even though I've spent my life in the process of transformation and then a career in transformation. The reality is that I am in a very transformational chapter of my life. And while that process is always ongoing, it's much more of an intensive one. And for quite some time, I have continued to have this constant feeling of pressure to share with all of you the process of transformation. And I've also been navigating the way in which parts of me have been in a battle with each other. One part wanting to fully express the full self and the authenticity of myself in a transformational process that is beneficial for me, and also the way in which my higher self always feels my whole life that I just want to share transformation with other people, and that I've often felt like I wish that when I'm doing transformational experiences with myself, when I'm having amazing awarenesses, when I'm doing different strategies, when I'm learning a new methodology like internal family systems, I just wish I could share it with all of you. I just wish I could share it with people. This is my true self. I've always been a very open-hearted, very, the truth is I've always been a very generous person and wanting to share that spirit of what uplifts me with other people. And I've been able to do that to a certain extent in my life with people who've allowed that. I've been able to do that with people on my team and my coaching company, and I've been able to do that with clients that have been coaching clients. And I've also experienced a lot of difficulty wanting to share the truth of myself and the generosity of spirit that flows through me and the authentic experience that is making the source and the authenticity that is making reality through me. And I've just wanted to express that self into the world. And that is something I'm coming to understand even more, that I've wanted to express all of it. I've wanted to express everything. I've wanted to just be me. And so, whatever that experience is, whether I'm in a moment of jubilation, a moment of challenge, a moment of transformation, a moment of excitement or revelation, I've just wanted to be able to live it and share it and have it flow through me. Um, and I'm at a transformational chapter in my life where I've come to understand that even though I've gotten to share a lot of myself with certain people and in the world, being a coach, a psychologist, having different relationships, being a speaker, being an author, the truth is, I feel like, I just feel like no matter how much of that has ever happened, I've never fully felt like I could just share my full self and just literally share it to every extent that I want to share it. So years and years ago, I remember thinking like, different people feel like they're struggling because they want something from people. They want to get something from people. And I just remember thinking like, I think I do have that too, but I think more just like, I just want to share with people. I just literally want to share. And I didn't realize until more recently that feeling was so profound for me because we live in a culture, and a lot of us live in family systems and communities and realities, and unfortunately in deep-seated programming where the normative thing is not to share your real self, and or some terrible, awful things will happen to you. And I've just realized I realized more recently that I just, I have, speak for myself, I think a lot of us have lived in a life where we're just like so pressured not to be ourselves. And I have become aware in a recent chapter of my life just how traumatic that in and of itself has been. And you can feel it. It's like coming up right now. And I can also appreciate that if like literally every single person, like we don't know what the world would be like if like every single person were just sharing their entire full amazing fullness of themselves, full spectrum selves, like what that might be like. But what I think is we'd be used to it. Because we just got used to this. And we all know what it's like when we get to be in authentic conversations with people, whether that be friends or a therapist or whatever it is, and how much relief we feel. And yet that's like typically a really small amount of time. And then depending on what we do, what our position is in the world, then there's all this stuff around like the way you have to be in order to be that position or this version of what this is or that is. And like, this is what a psychologist does. And I've just come to a point where I can just understand how much that hurts. And even though I've spent a career just trying to be like the most authentic version of me as a psychologist and not be put in that box, I realized I realized that's what most of reality is that we're being suppressed and managed into these certain versions of ourselves, and how we then take that on and then we put that upon ourselves. And even I would say, even if I wanted to continue on with that, which I'm in a lot of ways, I think that in some like could be very convenient just to be like, well, that's just how it is. And in a little bit of your life, you get to be your full self. For me, that's typically with clients and my team. And in most of life, you have to be at this like fake version of yourself, and then you end up being like countless versions of yourself. You're this way to your cousin, you're this way to your friend, you're this way to the doorman, you're this like, and you just end up with so many different versions of yourself, except for the one that you really are. And even if I wanted to continue that, which in so many ways I think I kind of wish that I could, because it would be a lot more convenient in certain ways than where I am right now. But in a recent chapter of my life, it just sort of like, well, I didn't sort of, I experienced the most intensive trauma I've ever experienced in my life with some things that have occurred in my personal life. And it just sort of broke the dam wide open for me to just like literally see uh, how this has been my whole life and how it is for most people. And the trauma in my recent past just occurred because I tried so hard to be like, I can't live as this inauthentic self. I thought I was really authentic, and most people would say I'm a very direct person, one of the more direct people that they know, and yet I came to understand just how much I was living a certain version of myself for certain people that I loved, and I just wanted, I was always, I guess, was being that so they would be more comfortable with me as I was. And when I tried to make a shift in it, it went horrifically. Um, the attempt that I made to go from feeling like I could no longer just be this inauthentic version of myself and trying to introduce that I was like going to start being more authentic to the people, really the people closest to me, went terribly. The things that I was needing to share about myself that felt really pressing and important, and like in some moments where it just was really important that I had support for some very authentic things that I needed to say and things that were going on and things that I needed to shift, and the pressure that I felt to shift them and address them, and where I just like didn't have any more ounce of me where I could just be this other version of myself. Like there was none left. And it went so horrifically, terribly, painfully bad that it created an entire whole cycle of trauma with which I've needed to now add to the pile to recover from. So it's like the trauma of being suppressed into your inauthentic self your whole life is one level of trauma. Then there's all kinds of trauma we all experience in general in life in this modern society that compresses you into a version of yourself that is not you. And then my main my attempt, which is something that I did. Also, I recognize I attempted a couple times when I was young to say, I can't do this version of reality anymore. I'm trying to say this to my family members. I need to be honest with you about what's going on with me and how I need to be able to be and how much healthiness I really need, and how I need to be able to say the things that I need to be able to say and express them and get support for them. And it went just as badly in my later adult life as it did when I was younger, but a trillion% worse. And so it just added layers and layers and layers of trauma. Um, because I was really at my wit's end with it. I was like, I cannot be a fake me anymore. Like it's literally killing me, and it's going to like literally make it so Tracy is gone, and there'll be only the fake version of her, and there will be no more access to her. And I just came to recognize that like I had done this so much for particularly the people in my family, but also just as a member of society. I had done this to be in a particular partnership, which was literally almost killed my actual authentic self, from which she would never return. And I would just be like some other false version of myself. And when I just try to be like, there is not one more ounce of me that has any bandwidth to pretend I'm this, or this, when this is who I am and what I have to say and how I'd like to relate in these relationships. And because it went so profoundly badly, it just sent me on a next level transformational path where I'm sure it's very overdue for this because, when you're building a lot of success, and I was building that and experiencing it, but you're building it on top of what you don't even realize is like not your fullest authentic version of yourself. And even if it is in certain realms and it's not in others, and you've got like this part is over here and this part's doing this and this, and you got 80 versions of yourself, the thought that you can keep it up is absolutely ridiculous. And so it just brought me to like almost be like forced into a big transformational chapter to not only heal from the trauma of a lifetime of being suppressed into a different version of myself than I actually am, which is just a multi-generational, like it's familial, but it's also just multi-generational, societal, it's all of it. Like it's just a bad strategy that's been going on for generations. It is coming to an end. Like we see it everywhere. It's not working. But it brought me to not only need to go into the healing of that inauthentic self suppression pressure that had been there my whole life, but now the trauma of trying to like actually change that and being completely and totally rejected from that, and then having the most traumatic experience of that because, again, there was like a teeny tiny ounce of bandwidth left to try to navigate that. And in these relationships where I was like, hey, there is like no room for any more of this kind of dysfunctional stuff. I can't participate in it anymore. I need to tell the truth. I need support in that. I need to be relating in that way. I'm happy for all of us to go to therapy and learn to do it together. And when that was completely and totally rejected, and what I realized, like, I only had like an ounce of the real Tracy that was like, had some bandwidth. And it was really, I realized, like, oh my God, I've gone so far into this pressure of society and family and community to put you in a particular box as a person and keep you there, that I realized, like, I almost literally killed my real self. Like, literally, where she would be gone. Like, I might be here, I'd be here in this body, but she'd be gone and not retrievable. And so it was a really vulnerable point where it's like, uh, this is just what needs to happen. And when it went so far awry, I didn't really have the fullest level of like self resourcing in order to navigate that in the way that I would want to, because I had done something that I really want to caution everybody against, which is I had let my own self be so pressured into being another version of myself, like a performative version, that all the strength that comes from your actual authentic self, because that's where the strength is in the true self, wasn't really there to navigate what had happened to me at the point where I was like, this is what's been happening to me, and so I need to change it. So it was like all that was there was like this kind of sense of like a broken self that didn't have the strength to like tackle and battle with the people in my life who like were resisting this very thing where I'm like, I literally think my real self is like almost dead and we need to make sure that she's okay by letting me be authentic and sharing with you more about who I really am. And so all of that to say that this has really led me into a new zone that is very unfamiliar territory, but I'm here doing it because this is what the authentic me is having me do. And so it's like, oh, sure, you wanted this authentic self. Here it is. Like, this is what she's telling you to do. So get on board. And it's kind of a lot different than what I thought. But my authentic self is wanting to share my authentic journey of transformation. And it's got multiple facets to it. And one facet is that, number one, I'm doing this transformational work. I need to do it. It's essential to me uh, taking care of myself, growing what it is I'm growing in the world, um, navigating what it is to uh, have also just really separated from anyone in my life who won't let me be my authentic self, because it's literally dangerous to my psyche and my well-being and literally my very person. And so I need to do this transformational work anyway. I'm doing it. I'm doing it with different practitioners. I'm doing it with myself. And like I was saying before, there is this constant pressure for me to share it. And I think that that comes from number one, I am born in my human design. I'm a 5-1 projector. For those of you that don't know human design, please look it up. I'll share more about it in future videos. I am here born as a literal transformational being. A projector and a 5-1 projector is someone that is ultimately literally created to transform, and I want to share it, and I want to help others, and I kind of don't want to waste my transformation just on me, which seems weird, but that's what it is. That's what my authentic self has to say about it. And I also feel like for there's maybe some part of me feels like there is some part of me that's saying one way to also go full-fledged into your authentic self and transcend this people-pleasing, good girl, approval junkie thing that was there my whole life. Because, without doing that, the people that I was raised by literally scared me to death. And no dissing to them. They were scared to death by the people that raised them, and just been handed down generation after generation. And they gave me the best that they possibly could, but they, when I'm just being really honest, they scared me my whole life into being a different version of myself. And I have a sense that, like, just by literally being authentic and putting this into the world to be helpful, even if it seems whatever it might seem, stupid, crazy, whatever it might seem, um, because I'm not here sitting here doing some perfect YouTube show production with all the perfect bells and whistles. I'm literally in the middle of a transformative process and just wanting to share it and doing the best that I can with that and saying, you know what, this is enough. Like, this is enough. I'm sharing it. Like, it maybe in the future it'll have like the perfect production quality to it, but this is what it is right now. And so part of me says that one way to get over having, having been made to be inauthentic and complying with that and all the self-hatred that I feel about that is to like go forward and just be like, here's who I am. Knowing that some of you will appreciate this and some of you will throw down and, thrash me about it. And I think the reality is, having come to a point where I was like at what felt like my most vulnerable, and going to the people that I chose to believe were the most of the people that I was the closest to in my life, um, and attempting to make a shift into being able to, like, essentially get permission to be my authentic self and not have that turn into some violent reactivity shit show that it turned into, which has been happening my whole life whenever I attempted it. So I really didn't attempt it very much. I think having the response be the absolute, like, the worst thing you could possibly imagine your whole life, and that's why you didn't do anything to attempt it. It's like, then it actually happens and it's worse than you actually ever imagine it could be in the way that it was responded to. Um, if I'm just being really honest, could have literally like just broke my entire psyche. Um, and I can understand in a lot of ways because I fully ended up participating in that, and my whole world was, you know, built around that. There was a version of me that people wanted me to be. I was doing that, and then, I'm sure it was very scary for these people to have me want to change that. And um, I think where I'm at is when you have attempted that and it has gone that terribly, and you've experienced the kind of trauma from that I have experienced, and thank God I have transformational capacity that has helped me navigate it. It's like, I think I've experienced the worst of it, because those are the people closest to me. And so it's almost like if I, am here sharing with you about my transformational journey, and some of you are appreciating it, maybe no one watches it, and also some of you absolutely throw down on me and have horrible things to say. I think finally at a point where I can actually handle it. It's like the worst experience of rejection that I could really fathom happen. And so it's like, okay, um, it's almost like giving me permission to just be like I know rejection now at a level that is so far beyond the rejection of yourself that happens your whole life and keeps that you keep getting molded into another version of yourself, which is what people experience. That's why they become their inauthentic self. And then the rejection of like saying like I can no longer live as my authentic self because it's like killing me, and then I need this authentic self to like literally be alive, and then to have that be rejected, which is like we're fine if you effectively die from not being your authentic self. We're not having any of it. We're not accepting it. In fact, we're going to attack the shit out of you until you recomply with the rules of the game and the way that this works in this family system. Um, so while I'll share in future videos more about my transformational journey and the background of what's brought me to this point in my life, what's bringing me to make this particular video and just give you some of that background of why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I am literally, as someone that has been effectively like dying while in the experience of living as an inauthentic self while performing a version of a self I didn't really know was a performative version of myself until I did. And like then realizing like, oh my God, if I go too much further in this, I'm going to kill the real Tracy and I need to let her live. And then going through the like brutal process of like making that transformational process happen so that like the life that I'd built around an inauthentic self sort of like it destabilized it as I'm becoming my authentic self, and it taught me more about transformation and what is needed as I go forward and support people in that, including myself. And so the point is that if I'm really saying I want to be my authentic self, which is very true, this is what my authentic self wants to do. And even if my authentic self wanting to do this is doing it as a almost like a rebellious act against having to be inauthentic my whole life or feeling that and then taking that on myself and then doing that to myself, very aware of that. And just like a rebellious act, and then later I might regret it and the pendulum will swing and balance out. I just keep having the navigation to do it. And it's almost like, there's no better way to become your authentic self than to go all the way in. And that's really the way I've been in my life in so many respects. And, I want to be the person. The person that I really am is the person who is the person who would just be like, this is what I want to share with you, and I share it. Like, that's literally the version. That's like authenticity at its finest. And there's something fascinating too about like just trust. I don't know what it is. I like trust the general public, knowing all of the like two things, like seeing the general public, seeing you support so many people in the world sharing what it is they share online, and also seeing the most awful damaging comments and things, and the way that people are just torn down and torn to shreds who are just doing the most fabulous work that I've ever seen done in the world. I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, I just freaking trust you more than the people that I am supposed to be closest to, who, in my experience of trying to tell the truth of who I am and be supported in that, and be supported in like the recovery from the struggles that I was having, recognizing I was being inauthentic and what that was doing in my life and what it was creating. No matter how much success I had, it was like creating this other stuff. And wanting to be authentic because you want to take your career and business to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. If there's any of that in the process, it'll push you at a plateau. And I think there's nothing I despise more in life than being at a plateau with my own growth, and then the way that that could impact the growth of the rest of my reality. So this is the message that I've been getting. And I keep speaking about the internal family systems piece, I keep feeling and am now more aware from my exposure to internal family systems that there is also just this part of myself that you could think, well, maybe this is like a really smart part of myself, or maybe it's just a protector part, maybe it's both, but that is just like, oh my God, like, do not be your authentic self. Like, I can feel the horrific programming that is so deeply embedded into my cells, which is like, if you are your authentic self, you will be killed, which could happen in the form of many things: denial, rejection, ruining my reputation as a psychologist, whatever it might be. But I think that that's backwards. I think it's that being your inauthentic self is what kills you, and that being required to be a version of a person, or a version of a doctor, or a version of a psychologist, or a version of a coach, or a leader, or an author, or a speaker. I think it's just as bad as needing to be a version of a woman, a girl, a daughter, a student, and having to be a version versus being who you are. So I just want to share who I am. I want to share my transformational journey. I'm doing it as I always have, to help people, but I think for the first time ever in my life, I'm doing it for me. And how I know that is I'm just willing to be seen. And there's just enough of the fear that's been worked through, gone, that says, which, and I can feel the trauma from my earliest years of my life all the way through being in this society, being in my families, even being in my profession, that if, this fear that says, if you are literally you, you will be killed. And I think that that's pretty universal fear. I think it's going like, even being a baby, that if you're a kid, and if you are a certain way and you have certain needs and you express them, you're gonna get killed. And for some people that might be literally a shaming or a yelling or a whatever people do when they don't like what you're expressing. And for some people, it could be that, like, it incites their somebody so much that that person literally is so angry that they haul off and really do, like, kill them. And all that matters to me with this area right now is that that's literally the way it has lived in me. Is it like, to be my authentic self means I will be killed. And as I say this, I also now am getting that that's generational trauma as being a female as well. And males have their own version of generational trauma. But I think that's the other one, being a female. If, I mean, how females survived the dangers of being completely overpowered by males for most of our existence was being the sweet, nice girl, being the good girl. And what we didn't have the brawn and the strength to overpower these guys. And so we had to be this compressed, good girl version of ourselves. And I can just feel that generational trauma there. And it's deep and it hurts and it's really scary. It has in it everything, like the Salem witch trials and the getting burned at the stake. And as someone who's always had like a revolutionary personality, I can literally feel that just being a what's it referred to as a legacy burden, a legacy trauma. And I'm learning about this more with internal family systems, these legacy traumas that if you speak up, if you say this, if you're heretical and you say this isn't working for society, there's a better innovative way, there's some really horrible shit that's happened to people. And I can literally feel that in there. That just brought up a lot of more fear, just like amped it back up again. But that's what the healing process is about. And that's why I want to do it. That's why I want to acknowledge what's in there. And I want to face it. And even though I'm talking about a lot of different things, one of the main reasons I'm doing this video is because in this recent chapter, I have come to learn more in depth about internal family systems. And while I knew of it, I never went into a lot of depth with it. And in this recent chapter, I have been almost like obsessively following a process of learning what it is, following what Dr. Richard Schwartz is teaching, and in a new area that I'm living in. I've recently moved out of the US, which was also traumatizing the hell out of me. And I live in Dubai now, so I'm starting to work with practitioners in this area in order that, again, I could just heal from that inauthenticity and just build more of my life on my authentic self and more of my company, my reality, and do the very thing that any good transformational leader does, which is first and foremost to do their own transformational work. But I've been doing some work on this on my own, and even though I am very clear and want to state here, I am following the format to the best degree that I can, using it on myself. I am also very aware that it's ideally done with someone else doing it for you following it, and yet I've heard Dr. Schwartz talk about the success that people have doing it themselves. So I have been doing it myself, and I have been kind of amazed by what I've been discovering and exploring. So I have a commitment to both do it with a practitioner, which therefore also means you're going to be doing it on yourself as a way of life. And I feel 100% positive that this pathway is the one that I have literally been looking for my whole life. And combining it with some other modalities, including one that I have been using to transform people, a modality that has come through me, a method that has been transforming lives with my company. I am just really embracing internal family systems wholeheartedly. And I want to share the process of what it's like to do it on myself, and also overcome some sense that like I should be doing this so much that by the time I share it with you, like I've perfected it. And really, I'm just in a different moment in my life. I'm just like, I'm just going to show you the process of where I'm at, how capable I am of doing it. You're going to see that, and you're also going to see anywhere I'm not doing it well. And like, I'm just like, I'd rather just like do it, share it, have the process help me, and ideally help some of you. And if I'm not doing it correctly or perfectly, it's just more power to me for being in my authenticity of just being imperfectly me and sharing that and being like, here's my offering and here's the generosity I'm sharing, and if it works for you, great, and if not, move on and do something else. Like, even my ability to say that is like telling me how much it's already working for me. Um so I've done it probably about 4 times on myself, and I'm pretty amazed about what shows up. I would, I'm going to keep studying it, learning it with a practitioner so I can just know the formula over and over and over. And I'm not suggesting, I mean, I'm not suggesting I'm doing it perfectly. I'm not even suggesting I'm doing it really well. I'm suggesting I'm doing it, it's an exploration. And each time I do it, it's teaching me something. And so I'm not here saying you should do it the way that I am doing it. I'm here sharing with you a transformational journey as a psychologist, and something that I think is pretty rarely done in my field, because we're taught, like, of course, you're the doctor, you're the transformer. That's the way it's supposed to be. I went into the field to do that, like, no doubt about that. And my authentic self has been saying to me, like, what if being a doctor of psychology has a different flavor to it, at least right here, right now, which is that you're also showing your own transformational journey, and that that in itself is a form of doctoring. Like, so let's explore it. Like, what, I mean, what else are we to do but like explore it and get the data? And why not track it? Why not document it? So that's what I'm doing. And I also know that I'll go to certain places that other people might be afraid to go. And so hopefully that's helpful. And I'm just willing to look, I don't know, whatever's going on with me, I'm really happy, but I'm willing to just look like a fucking idiot and have it be whatever it is. I'm like, and I'm so relieved by that. And this is where I'm at. So, internal family systems is the framework that suggests and has been proven empirically that we are made up of a lot of different parts, um, and that there is a self that is like a healthy self that's there, and that even if we didn't have any healthy attachment figures in our life, which is the case for me to a great degree, other than practitioners, that that healthy self is there, and that there are parts of us that are operating regularly in some sort of orchestration, operation, and system. And that even the thought that, like, this thought, these are all thoughts or feelings, is a different paradigm than the fact that these are just different parts of us that are activating, which feels way more real to me. It makes way more sense to me. I'm like, now, instead of being like, well, there's anxiety and there's this and there's excitement, I'm like, there's this part, there's that part. Like, I can literally now feel the parts when they engage and take over from one or the other, when they're fighting with each other. And it's been a real revelation for me. Um, and to be very honest, to another level, I think after using so many transformational modalities in my life, I don't even know if any of them would have worked to the degree that they can now, with the family systems piece, internal family systems piece, starting to be integrated into my life. And my real dream is that I would get to do an entire series of, and a set of work with Dr. Schwartz, and just be that 100% like open, fully willing, like, 100% being like, I'll be authentically me and whatever comes up, and I will not tamp it down. I will not try to, protect some version of myself or my family or anybody anymore, because I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to protect anybody anymore from my authentic self. I get to actually be that authentic self, because that authentic self it is, when it's able to be itself, as Dr. Schwartz talks about, it has these 8 C's: courage, compassion, creativity, confidence, connectivity, clarity, and a couple more. Um, and I'm just going to be making videos when I do the process on myself, and I'm going to be sharing them. And my intention is to just create a series that highlights my trajectory through transformation, and how, instead of building my entire life as I did in all my success, and earning millions of dollars, transforming people over the years, and having all of that be built on partly an authentic self and partly a performative self, and the way that that felt also stressful, having the rest of my life be built on the foundation of my authentic self, because truth is what creates the strength and makes a foundation solid, and what it is that I can build from there, and what my authentic self is here to do, and where it takes me in doing that, and what that transformational journey is, because I'm here in a wholehearted commitment to that, and allowing the divine source to work through me, make me and shape me into who I was always here to be. That's also in my human design chart, exactly who I'm here to be and what I'm here to do, and to not be afraid of who that person is, what she might do and say, to not be afraid that she's going to be killed for being her. Um, and if I am, to do it anyway. And like, something that I literally had to learn at a certain point, which is like, I could be one of the most courageous people that I ever knew, but still, when it came to saying certain things about my own journey and my own life, and things I always wanted to share and share with the world, and share on YouTube, and share on social media, and share in talks and books, I came to realize that I was still being an inauthentic version of myself, because like, I was literally afraid of my family. I was like afraid of my mommy and afraid of my daddy. I'm like literally afraid. And I just want to really acknowledge and respect them for who they are, and what they've done in their lives, and what they've done for me. And to say that I can also recognize that, like, the line between like what's reality and what's perception is so important, because that's also because I've had that trauma inside of me for so long. It kept literally keeping itself going, because I had every reason at certain points in my life to be afraid of these people, because not because they ever intended to hurt me, but because they were hurt people reacting and doing all kinds of crazy shit in my reality, in my environment. And it was incredibly profoundly scary, and I can now say that. And it doesn't mean I don't care about them, don't love them, don't appreciate that they were like literally struggling, and in a society that told them to keep that secret. And they were of a generation that they had to be more suppressed than mine, and mine's of a generation that'd be more suppressed than the ones that are following me. And they had to keep that under wraps instead of just going to freaking therapy and getting help for it. We're like all suffering in these silos, instead of living in these beautiful tribes that we used to live in, all taking care of each other, having help. We're all off in these individual pods of reality, suffering, trying to put food on the table and do all this stuff. And it's like, that's not how we were meant to live. And they were suffering, and their trauma is still there. And so it's like, just And yet I'm like, I'm done with that. Like, it's there. I've had compassion for it my whole freaking life, which is why I stayed suppressed in order to not make the trauma they'd already gone through more difficult. I tried to perfect myself so I could be this thing that was something good for them, and then like it almost killed me. And it didn't allow me to grow at the level that I was like literally driving so hard to grow at, to be someone of good contribution to society. And so this is also me just breaking the cycle, just being like, all of the suppression and the silence and the we're over here and suffering, and like, these families that I was a part of, it's like, this is the version of family. Like, we're a family, but we're all separated within the smaller version of the family, within the larger version of the family. It's like, and this is society. Like, everybody is this one big human family, but everybody's all separated and individuated, suffering, and like we should be living in tribes and working together. It's just as simple as that. Like, it just makes perfect sense. It's just the leverage of community, which is why everything's changing, and everything's going to head in the direction of community and being tribal society again. Experiment failed. It helped us build a lot of things, but it also, made a lot of suffering. So I did have every reason to feel afraid, to internalize that, and then to be afraid to be myself. And I just took that on and carried it. So this is me breaking the cycle and saying, I want to shift it. And it's also taken a lot for me to do that. And I'm willing to go through the experiment. So the piece of work that I want to do, that I'm here to do, is around. So I'll say this: as I've been discovering some parts that are there. This is the internal family system model, where there are parts of us, and they're in categories that are typically exiles, the parts of us that have been really hurt and wounded and are being protected, and they're being protected by these protectors that are either managers or firefighters. The managers try to manage our life so that it all goes well and we don't get hurt anymore. And then the firefighters, if we do go into get triggered, they literally like come in to rescue us and get us to do some sort of behavior that will distract us or soothe us or whatever, even at the expense of creating addictions and struggles and things like that. So, one of the challenges I've had in my life that I'm going to focus on, because it's bothering me lately, uh, was that at a certain point in my life where I had a traumatic experience, which I can again say now in a way that I've never said before in public, happened when my parents got divorced. And I literally worshiped my dad and wanted to be with him all the time. And I now know partly why is that our human designs were very similar. He's also a 5-1. He was a 5-1 projector like me. I wanted to be around him all the time. Um, my mom, God bless her for her journey, which has been brutal. And she's one of the strongest people that I have ever known. And I wish to have an like anywhere near the level of strength that she has. Um, when I was really young, she was a teenage mom. She was really struggling, and my parents were. They were struggling with each other. They were struggling with having me. She was 15 when she was pregnant, 16 when she had me. And through much of my young life, she was in very extreme emotional struggles, uh, dealing with all kinds of difficulty, including my dad being incredibly reactive and traumatized as well, and them having, horrible fights and battles, and my dad being incredibly emotionally abusive and violent and reactive, and them just really struggling in that, and then my mom, him acting out, doing all kinds of negative things. I think just feeling the pressure to provide, they were both feeling that, and having a baby and feeling trapped together, and my mom being suicidal and really being in a deep struggle with which I've had compassion my entire life and tried since really I was in the womb and came out to never ever do anything that would ever tip the scales in that direction so that I would lose her. And I just became just trying to do literally anything and everything that I could my whole life so that she could feel better. And I, at the point with which my parents were getting a divorce, felt incredibly traumatized by it. And I wanted to go with my dad, which doesn't mean I didn't love my mom. I just wanted to go. He was functioning better, and I wanted to go with him. And a lot of changes happened. My mom had a new person come into her life who she ended up marrying and is still with today. And a lot of changes happened that were very difficult for me. And I never, ever said how I felt about it because I knew that wasn't allowed. And I never had a voice in it. Things were just happening. And my life changed, and I was only seeing my dad a little bit, and was with my mom and her boyfriend, who then became her husband. And it was a very difficult time in my life, and I was supposed to never ever say anything about it. And eventually, at one point, I started to recognize that one of the things that I was doing was it was somehow like using food to make myself feel better. And eventually that turned into an eating disorder that was really intensified through my, like, at 12 and then through my teenage years. And I tried to get help for it when I was 16, and I reached out and wrote a very significant letter about how sick I was and how desperate I was for help, and that I thought I was going to die from the disorder. And I'll just, for this video, just say that was rejected, and I didn't get the help that I needed, and I lived in a lot of turmoil in the eating disorder until I was an adult and could start to tackle it myself, and spent a lot of years having overcome it. And then at the points of my life where I was really able to be my most transformational self, my most authentic self, it was in remission for a long time. And through this recent chapter where more trauma has been revealed and more trauma has been created and more trauma is being worked on, it has resurfaced to a certain degree. And while it's got like a slightly different flavor, it's something that's bothering me. And through the internal family systems awareness, I came to understand, start to recognize, like, oh, this is a part of me that is doing something in order to help me. And so where I want to go with this process and exercise and in this video is to connect with and address that part of me that has done that behavior and has started to distract me a little bit more with like wanting to do that behavior more. And I want to go to it, address it, help it, and see what it's all about. So that's the plan. Okay, so I'm going to go into the process, the internal family systems process. I know it to a certain extent. It's very new to me. I've just started working with this model created by Dr. Richard Schwartz, who says, that most people will need someone to help them with it, which is part of my process as well. But some people can do it on their own. And in fact, once you're in the process anyway, a bunch of it you're meant to do on your own as well to heal all of the parts of you, to upgrade them, to help them work in harmony with each other as an amazing team, and in my words, to create your ideal reality. So I'm going to go into a part that I want to understand more, want to know, want to give some attention. And this part has to do with binging. And I would say it's kind of particular because it's more, if I really look at it, it's more of a part that is like addicted to sugar and sweet treats, because I don't really binge on regular food at all. And I don't even know if I can qualify what I do in eating sweets as binging at all. But I do eat them regularly. They are a part of my life. I have dessert every day. And I do feel the compulsion to do it. And in the very old version of the eating disorder that I had when I was a kid, I did binge on all kinds of stuff. I was just literally struggling with it majorly and really needed serious eating disorder treatment. Tried to get it, attempted to get it with my family, letting them know, like, hey, I've got like a freaking, like, eating disorders are a fatal illness. They were more concerned with what I would say to therapists, and shut it all down. And when I started to get, I had a couple sessions with a therapist, and a therapist was trying to say, hey, she's going to need your support. That didn't go well with my father at all. He felt criticized by the therapist. And then the truth is that I went through a really difficult experience where, well, I guess, yeah, I might as well just say this. The therapist was trying to have a discussion with him about the things the therapist was hearing from me in order to get my dad to be more emotionally supportive for me. What I really wanted was to be really close to my dad. And what I really wanted was to have him really understand that I was really struggling in a lot of ways. And ultimately, I can say this now today, because I'm not living a life anymore in order to protect people's feelings and be a people pleaser and hurt myself. But I really wanted to go live with my dad, where the lifestyle was just honestly more abundant, more fun. And it takes nothing away from my mom and her husband and all of their efforts. But I really had an experience where, while my dad had a lot of issues himself emotionally, he was very, very generous and wanted to give me a lot of things. And on the other side of things, my mom's boyfriend, who eventually became her husband, it was like a rich dad, poor dad situation, and his way of managing his extreme anxiety that he never got help for, to this day, was to conserve and to basically pretend that we don't have needs and to not fulfill our needs. I think this is what happened to him in his childhood. And here my dad was like, hey, what do you need? And then he would give it to me. And then the other person playing the role of a father figure would be just incredibly nervous for my mom or I to literally need anything. And so it really, to say it was painful, and to say that, like, in the last couple of years, I've been able to come to terms with how awful that was. And I want to acknowledge, I think that's been awful for him too, to basically have a life strategy, which is to try to not meet your needs as a way of saving money rather than to understand your needs, connect with them, and go make enough money and learn how to do that in order to take care of them and take care of your wife and stepdaughter. So I had one dad that was just like wanting to give me a lot of stuff, even though he couldn't really emotionally support me. And then I had one that could not emotionally support me, and one that wanted me to not have any needs. So I didn't have anything that he needed to spend money on. And I think that's been brutal for my mom and me. And I think it's been a horrific experience. I know for me, it's been a horrific experience. And I'm just giving that background as we go into this to say that the eating disorder experience was a very highly, highly active one when I was young. Really struggling in that environment in particular, where it was all about deprivation and conservation of resources, which is it's been a strategy for a lot of people throughout the ages, juxtaposed to a strategy where my dad, and he was married to someone and showering her and her kids with literally everything. And when I would be over there, I would get to partake in that. And otherwise I would be, in my experience, is in a kind of a really dark, depressing environment where I felt like my mom was like a slave to this process and kind of trapped in it. And then I didn't want to leave her in it. And then I felt like a slave trapped in it. And it was these two very different environments. And I felt very sick in that environment. And I was sick with an eating disorder. I had people around me constantly dieting also in the dieting age. And I really wanted to go with my dad. I just wanted to live the lifestyle my dad was living all the time and just be free in that. But I didn't want to leave my mom. I didn't want to hurt her. And because my mom had been suicidal in a lot of my young life, I really felt like I couldn't leave her. And I sacrificed myself for that because I wanted her to be with me. And I just didn't want to be in the environment that she was in. I don't think it was a good one for me. I don't think it ever has been. And I can now finally say that, because my life is not any longer about protecting other people's feelings while hurting myself because I can't tell my own truth. More power to anyone and everyone about the way they want to do things, but I get to say how it felt for me and my particular needs. And I'm just continuing to grow in the ability to speak that and step into the freedom of it. So the eating disorder used to be very, very overpowering and overtaking me and just taking me on these incredible, massive binges and then purges, and then taking me into these extreme diets. So I just was prisoner to it. And at a certain point, when I was an adult and I could get all kinds of therapy that my parents were not willing to give to me, even though I needed it. And quite honestly, I think one of the biggest traumas, if not maybe the biggest trauma of my life, was asking for that help. And my dad not wanting to get to have anything to do with what the therapist was telling him about how much I was struggling in my relationship with him and how much I needed him. But the background is I really, really just wanted to be close to him so I could finally tell him the truth and say, hey, could I just come and be with you? And he took that in a really bad way. And when the therapist was trying to explain to him that I really needed to be closer to him and that I was afraid to tell him things, I was afraid of him, he stopped the therapy. And while I'll make a separate video on this, I'll just say this one part about it. He essentially threatened me that if I ever told anybody anything about him again, said a negative word about him, that he would never speak to me again. He would cut me off. He would never be there for me. And I would effectively be dead to him. I believe I was 16 at the time. And then, so what I realized, and then my mom and her husband were always in those situations of the position, we don't have the money, and then wanting my dad to pay for it. So there was no hope for me to have any treatment. And what I learned was that my job was to go back to pretending that I didn't have this illness. And I felt massively ashamed that I ever came out with it, but it was killing me. I wrote a letter to my mom to say, this is killing me. I think I'm going to die from this. I don't know how to commit suicide, but I feel like I want to. And what I know, and I can again speak freely now because I'm not going to let fear. I do have fear about what these people will think, but I'm not going to let that get in my way. I just felt like what they wanted was for me to not need anything so they didn't have to spend the money. And my mom had been with this guy so long that she had basically adopted that policy. Like, it's great for Tracy to not need anything that we would need to spend money on. And so nothing was done. And everybody was just really wanting me to go back to pretending that I was okay. And that's exactly what I did. I doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on pretending everything was okay. And I was like, I'm absolutely fine. And then I went into a deeper level, literally a massively deeper level of hiding and of the eating disorder, and then hiding and pretending that I didn't have it, which I have no idea how these people were. They knew I had it. They just didn't want to pay for it, which is what it always came down to. It always has. So I got sicker and sicker for many years. And then I was finally an adult and I went to work and I could like pay for my own therapy. They didn't really do a good job helping me, but eventually, through my own transformational methodology, I recovered from it to a really significant degree. Wasn't there for many, many years. But there's always been this tension with the food thing and just feeling like there's something going on there. And now that I'm in a new moment of my life where I'm addressing these deeper traumas, healing them, talking about them, it's activated this sort of this feeling, the pressure, so even if I don't go do it, the behavior, the pressure is there. So sometimes I go do it and I get the compulsion and then I go get something sweet to eat. And I just feel like I'm a puppet on a string and I don't want that anymore. And so even when I'm containing it, it feels like I'm in some conflict with a part of me. And I know that protector parts are trying to do something good for us. And I want to connect with this part, understand its role, understand what it wants me to know, and start to help it transform. Because I think about all the people I've ever transformed in my life. My focus in this moment, right here, right now, is to transform my own parts of me. And I just love the internal family systems model that these are real personalities, identities. They have their own life, their own world. And also they got frozen in time at a time when they were formed in order to help you survive something that was unsurvivable. But they think that you're still in that. And if something starts to feel similar to that, which this part of my life really does feel very similar to very early parts of my life, which makes sense because if any of you follow astrology, when you're in your Chiron return, the astrology is the same as when you were born. And so now you're starting the clock over and you start to feel all the same exact experiences, emotions, and you literally like opens up all of your trauma. So trauma that I did not even know I had is continually getting opened up. It's giving me an opportunity to heal it. It's giving me an opportunity to build a new foundation. And it's helping me see also what my clients are needing as they go through these experiences so they can build their dream life off of a very solid foundation and who they really are, not the false sense of who they are. So just a bit of that background. I'm going to go into the process with the part. And we're going to see what it wants, what it's got going on. So I'm going to I've got my dog here with me also. I'm going to lay back, put on this blindfold, and I'm just going forward with this stuff. I am in a new phase. I'm not like sitting here worried about what you think about me, what I look like, and any of this stuff, clearly. I'm just going forward and doing it. So here we go. Make sure I'm on camera so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, here I go. Okay. So I'm here to connect with the part that feels really compelled when I am stressed and also just can in general feel compelled to eat sugar, sweet treats, sugary treats, snacks, ice cream, chocolate bars. Part that's really the part that really uses sugar and has had in my whole life just this constant sugar fix. It's always needing to get satiated. And this is also the part that is also just like this eater who eats, who like magically, when I have tasks and things that I like, especially admin tasks that I don't really want to do, because it's like hard on my system, because I'm more of a visionary and I'm not necessarily this detail person. Whenever I have to go from getting to be like the visionary connector person and have to go into the admin part of life, this eater part, it's amazing how it all of a sudden gets hungry and somehow I need to eat. And that I think is some interesting kind of distraction or way of helping me. And I just want to know more about that. And this part is the part that has also just done a lot of, throughout my lifetime, it's done a lot of binging and it's done some purging. And it's the part, I want to connect with this part that just sort of always has this tension around eating and just this whole very conflicted relationship with food, eating, and just this craving of sugar that I can fight it sometimes. And then sometimes it just wins and takes over. And I just really want to connect with this part because I think this is the part that I used to say when I first started helping people as a psychologist and a trainee in psychology, like, and explain my own eating disorder. And I'd say this there, I said, I don't know what would happen. I'd be sitting there and then all of a sudden I'd be driving my car to the store, opening up the frozen section and taking two things of Ben and Jerry's and then just wolfing those down and then throwing those up. And it was like something took over. And now I recognize and believe that is this part. And I would just like that part to step forward and just make itself known. Right now, it feels like it's kind of lurking in the shadows, kind of like wanting to poke its head out. There's some other part that's like kind of like calling its attention, like you need to get up there and you need to talk to her. It's almost like this kind of like sheepish sheepdog like part. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's back in the shadows. Yeah, and there's just like this other part that's just like kind of shouting. It's not like a really mean shout. It's just like a, hey, you need to show up. So it looks like this part is feeling a lot of shame about making itself known, as it's really lived in the shadows for a long time. The part that's like shouting that like it needs to show up is like feels like the part that's like the part that shouts at me that I need to do things and get things done. I think this part is called the pusher. It's a protective part. Yeah, so the pusher is trying to get the binger eater part to come out. And I'm just gonna ask the pusher to go ahead and back off and just relax back because I've got it. I'm here. I can handle it. I'll connect with that part. Just give it a chance to show itself. It's almost like it's like there's a stage when I'm like sitting in the audience, and the stage is like the audience part is like lit up, but the stage is like dark. And the part is behind like the curtain, not wanting to come out. It says its job is not to be a star. Its job is to take help me go far by giving me some sweetness in my life. So I just want to invite this part to come further. And I'm letting you know I'm here, and I'm very safe. The way I feel toward it, well, I'll just talk to it. I want to tell you that the way I feel toward you What's coming up is I feel grateful for you, first and foremost, which is kind of amazing. And in my body, I kind of feel it up here. And I feel it in my heart. That's where it has been living as well. And I just want to tell you, I feel grateful for you. And I don't want you to feel ashamed of yourself anymore. I'm not here to shame you. I feel grateful for you. I I want you to know that I can see that you've been trying to help me. You have been helping me. And the way I feel toward you for your role that you played in my life so far is just grateful that you found a way to give me some pleasure and sweetness. Because I really didn't have much of that in my reality growing up. Okay, I'm starting again, just resuming. Just staying connected to this part. And I'm just letting it know I'm grateful for it. I'm really glad that that's what's coming up. I am really grateful that you found a way to give me pleasure and sweetness that I didn't have a lot of in my upbringing. That was from the general relational process with people. It was more done through food. So there was pleasure and sweetness through food, but not necessarily in my interactions to the degree that I wanted it. So I'm just so grateful for you to find some sort of way to give it to me. It's like the way I feel toward you for this part that you are is that you knew the truth, that I needed sweetness. I needed the pleasure. Probably needed the dopamine. I needed something to make me happy, something I could depend on. And I feel grateful for you. And I wish you felt more comfortable coming out from the shadows and making yourself known. And now the part has walked out to the middle of the stage. And it's just sitting on this chair. And I'm looking at it from the, like, sitting in the seats, like in this theater. And I just want to understand more from you about your role. I do want to thank you for your service. I would like to thank you for being on my team and my operating system. Yeah, but I also can really feel this pain in my heart for this role that you had to play all these years. And this feeling that you had to be responsible for that dose of sweetness and this thing that I could look forward to and that I could enjoy. When I was also just feeling in conflict with it and toward you. And I'm sorry about that. And I would like to know more about you. And what I would like to know is, what do you think would happen to Tracy what do you think would happen to her if you didn't do that? If you didn't do any of that anymore, or if you just didn't do it at all? She would be depressed. She would feel empty. She would not enjoy reality. She would feel a lot of very sad feelings. She would then get a lot of awarenesses of things that were unhappy and not good. She would feel alone. Oh, she would feel alone. She would be missing a friend that she could count on. And she would be basically alone. Life would not be worth living. She would not have any fun. And she would feel the way the world really is, how bad it is, how bleak it is. And she would, she would have used alcohol and hard drugs. And she would have potentially become an addict of worse things and would have done lots of damage to her and she cares about. Um, so your role was really important. You're making sure I didn't become a complete drug addict and kill myself. Mm, very grateful. And I wanted to just get a sense of what age you think I am. It thinks I'm 19. Right. Thinks I'm 19. Okay. And I want to share with you that I am a full mature adult and that I am grown up, and that I can handle a lot more than what you think I can handle, and that I want to understand more about your role and help you if you'd like to potentially change it. So it's like this 19-year-old teenage girl and I'd like to come in and be with you where you are. Is that okay? I want to come closer to you. Mm. Saying that's okay, but I feel my heart kind of start to close up again. She's saying that she wants the connection, but she's not sure she trusts it. Yeah, she feels that the people she's supposed to trust the most have turned on her whenever she was at the worst. And I'm wanting to know if it's okay if I just sit right next to you and just understand more about your role, your experience. She's open to that. And as I move toward her, there's some there's a couch being brought out, and that's just being brought out, just pushed out into the middle of where the stage is. And now she's sitting in a couch and letting me sit next to her on this couch. It's like a velvet couch. And she just let me sit, like, I gotta have like this much distance between us. She just wants a little room. And she just, uh, she looks, she looks like she's this petite little being that's like, it's been like emanating toughness. Okay. So I'm just reconnecting with her. She's just this petite girl that seems very feminine on one hand, but has this really tough, like badass, like I'm super strong, kind of like, don't fuck with me. Like, shit's like she's been through a lot. She's got this like bravado going. This very tough exterior. And what I just want to know is, I want to understand your role. You'd be open to sharing with me more? Like, when did this start? When did you start this role? It's giving me 3 years old. Okay. She's saying that she could see the difficult environment that I was in. And at first, she just started numbing me by just numbing me so that I wouldn't need anything, wouldn't make any noise, and wouldn't upset my parents. And she just started by numbing me so I wouldn't feel anything. Oh, ouch. Oh, and then what else should I know about this role and how it started and what it's been like? She says her job was to numb me when I was little because she could see that I wasn't getting what I needed and I was hurting. And she found a way to just get me to be numb and quiet and not need anything from anybody so I wasn't upsetting my parents and inciting some sort of another level of fighting. She got me to get to just numb. And then that's when I was really little because I had no way of just getting food myself. So she just numbed me so I wouldn't feel anything, wouldn't need anything. And so her role goes back from the earliest of times. She's saying that when I was 3, I started to like want more and need more. And she could see that I wasn't getting that. And that when I would need something, it would upset my parents, and then it would turn into a big cycle of fighting that would end up hurting me more. So it would go on for hours. And she taught me how to numb. That she was with me all along because I didn't have any way to get anything myself. She just got me to follow along. And this is how she was protecting me. I just want to know more about your role and anything you want me to know. Mhm. And that as I was getting older, it became easier to get me to eat sweets as they were everywhere. Grand, both my grandmother's homes, my mom ate a lot of them. They were at my dad's. And the more You're saying as I got older, and things got more intense as my parents were divorcing, as my parents were fighting. You're saying as they were fighting, and we, and then she's saying as I didn't have any control over my environment. That and so as I would eat sweet things, she saying she made them taste better. She saw that that worked to give me happiness. She decided that that was a strategy she could depend on to help me have a some help me have fun, but most importantly to help me have a distraction from um, so because the sweet treats worked so well, and she found something that she could count on to help me. She kept using this over the years because because she knew if she didn't, that I would turn to other things that really had the potential to do serious damage and ultimately kill me. She's just feeling very relieved to tell me how it all works. So she's just saying that the sweet treats when she figured out that they worked and saw how happy they made me, And she felt like she found something that she could use all the time. Something that wouldn't hurt me as bad as other things like drugs and alcohol would hurt me. Please, please. She felt that that was the thing that she could use that would be the most, she's saying the most joyful, but would be the least harmful in order to take the pain away and to numb me and distract me and give me a sense that things were better than they actually are. What else do you want me to know? That she didn't want me to really understand just how bad things were. So this is what she did to help me think they were better. So I could be in the world. And then I could do something to make the world better. She's saying she never meant to hurt me. That was really hard on her to have to watch me suffer. She couldn't stand to see me suffering. So she gave me something to make it a little bit better. Is there anything else you want me to know? That she felt really bad for me enduring what I had to endure in my family. And as she saw me repeating the same things, and she felt bad for me, that no one really recognize me for who I am. And that she felt bad for people not recognizing my suffering and helping me. She really just wanted to take my suffering away. Is there anything else you want me to know? That when she would see me enjoying the sweet treats, that she would be happy too. Because she suffered with me all the way through. And those were the moments that I got to feel better. She got to feel better too. Is there anything that you want me to say to anyone or anything that you want me to do for you? What she's saying is to just literally use my voice, say whatever I need to say, make noise, shout from the rooftops, tell the truth, show the truth, and face the pain and make it better in a new way. And she's saying that it's time for me to say whatever I need to say. And that she just wanted to make sure that I made it here. Or I could bring in she's saying again that she just wanted to make sure I got here to this place. Or I could say what I needed to say. Be who I'm here to be. Do something different with my pain and difficulties. And she's like shrugging her shoulders, like this is all she knew how to do. This was the strategy that she thought was best. And I'm opening up my hand to her on this couch, on the couch that we're sitting on where she is. Inviting her to take my hand. She puts her hand in mine, like over the top of it, like this. Squeezing each other's hands. There's more light in the room now. I'm turning toward her. I'm seeing her as this teenager who's also like this strong warrior for me. And I'm just hugging her. She's hugging me back. She's letting me hug her. She's pretty small. She's really tough. She's letting me hug her and hold her. We're just holding each other. In this quiet transmission of appreciation for each other. We sit back down. We're laughing. And I'm letting her know that I am a mature adult. And while I do understand that it hasn't looked like I could handle it, that I'm committed to a new path through challenging feelings, experiences, emotions, and moments and chapters. And letting her know that I want to know these experiences and become really masterful with how I handle them and how I turn them into something beneficial. I let her know that I can manage. And I am asking her if she would like to unburden herself anymore. And transform out of this role. She gets up from the sofa and she's screaming. She's like this with her hands up, just roaring, roaring, like, ah, I'm free. She's just yelling, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. Much louder than this. She's really loud. I'm free. She's just yelling, I'm free. She's like, I'm free. I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. And she doesn't care who hears her. Who's in the room. She's just like yelling, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I'm free, I'm free. She's kind of running all over the stage in different corners. I'm free. She's going over to another corner. I'm free. And in this auditorium, it's now full of people. And we both can see that they've been watching us and rooting for us. And she's just going to these different edges of the studio saying, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I'm free. And I'm cheering for her. And the whole crowd is cheering for her. And it looks like the crowd is full of our ancestors. And they've been just cheering us along. They've just been cheering us along. And she sits back down next to me on the sofa. She's sitting there. She's so happy. I'm so happy. So happy. I love seeing people get free. Oh, I love getting free. And it's now like the audience is like watching us like do some conversation even more. And I ask her what she'd like to give all of that up to. She's saying she already gave it up to the sky. She gave it up to the sky. And she's light. And now she looks really feminine. And instead of being dressed in black leather and black everything, she's dressed in white. And I'm asking her, where do you, is there somewhere you want to go? And is there a new role that you would like to play? And she's saying that she doesn't want to ever again be in charge of pain management. That all she wants to do is to go and play. And be with friends. She just wants to be with people that aren't in pain anymore. And she just wants to go and play. And be with fun people. And do really fun things. And create amazing new realities. And most of all, she just wants to be free to go play and do whatever she wants. And I'm just letting her know that that's her new role. Is to just go have fun, be with amazing people, and play. And is there somewhere specific that you would like to go? And you can also come with me into the present moment. Just wants to be out and about in the world as a spirit that can just go anywhere and do anything and play all day. So I'm sending her there. And we're hugging. And we embrace this very big hug. She just walks away. And I see her walking into this amazing party with so many beautiful people. And everybody's dressed in white. She walks into the party, and everyone starts to say hi to her and welcome her and look at her. And they're hugging her. And they're thanking her for coming out to play. And being there because she's the life of the party. And I'm going to come back into the room. Wow. Okay. My hair looks hilarious. I'm just going to say that that was a pretty incredible internal family systems session. And I thank you for joining me, observing the process. And while there's several things I could say about it, I'm just experiencing the benefits of it. Feel very relaxed. Very grateful. I'm really amazed where things go when you tune into your internal family system. It's like kind of amazing and astounding. Like it's really something. I'm just really glad that I've opened up to it and that I'm opening up to what it's showing me. And what it's doing for me on my transformational trajectory. And I'm just appreciating that I'm at a new moment to be able to show it and how much I can be present with it, even though I know it's being recorded. And that even though there's some distractions like my dog barking and that I'm just glad I've taken steps to just do it and make a point to capture the experience of how my process of internal family systems applied to myself is going and to share it. And I do look forward to creating even more videos like this and making them as beneficial as I possibly can and making whatever improvements or adjustments to the process that make that happen. And I really thank you for being with me on the journey of transformation as I go on my trajectory through self-actualization, healing of trauma, of various different issues, connecting with myself, being more authentic, and trusting that that's okay. And really, it's this amazingly peaceful feeling that I can trust you. And that I want to. And that this is my path through authenticity and intentionality for living my highest life in the deepest health and wealth and happiness, and being in community with people like you, with my brothers and sisters in this world. I'm just really grateful to be connected with you. Thank you. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in, and this content is helping you. It'd be great for you to subscribe to it. I'll continue to show more. And as I move through a process of supporting myself while also supporting you, I would really appreciate your support too. So thank you. Be well. I'll see you next time.